Welcome, I'm your host Matt Frawley. This is Mathey Talks, and today I'm really excited to be speaking with Dallas Nan, who is a junior engineering student, chemical biological engineering. He was a Mathey student for his freshman and sophomore year, but he's in Whitman now. We won't hold that against him. So what's exciting about this talk is I was just telling Dallas is I'm so excited about his story here at Princeton, but also yesterday the Princeton released had a press release on the recommendations of their socioeconomic diversity working group for undergraduate students. So we'll touch upon that at the end, but at first we want to talk about Dallas and a group that you helped found, the Princeton Hidden Minority Counsel.
Yes.
So what's that all about?
So the Princeton Hidden Minority Council was an initiative that a few leaders of, disadvantaged groups on campus like LEDA and Gates Millennium Scholars and Quest Scholars Network, leaders of all of those groups got together on campus with the thought that there needed to be a stronger, larger, low-income, low socioeconomic group on campus for many different reasons. Most of our initiatives center around resource compilation, around community building on all levels of students, from undergraduates to graduates to faculty and administration, and hopefully alumni at some point.
Right.
And also giving students an opportunity to have a voice. So we are also creating a blog. This is all hopefully going to be combined on a website that I'm currently working on with Dean McKay on. That's going to be part of ODOC's website. So we're very excited about the website launch, but for now we're just kind of getting everything in a row and getting ready to launch pretty soon.
And we should let people know that we're going to have the email address of the Princeton Hidden Minority Council in the video here, so that'll be up there the whole time of this interview. And so students who may not know about this resource can email the council and get involved right away. So let's talk about your story before we maybe talk more about the Princeton Hidden Minority Council.
Sure.
And as I was saying before, Dallas to me is one of the great stories at Princeton here, and someone I'm really proud of, and just I'm proud to know you, and it's exciting to see. Is it okay to say transformation?
Yeah,
in a way,
definitely.
Because freshman year was rough.
Yes.
And now Dallas is a true leader on campus, leads a lot of PACE Center activities and trips, and you did CA. I saw you with the group last week or 2 weeks ago. So tell me about your freshman year, or before you coming here, your own story. Let's hear that.
Yeah, so my story kind of starts out as my parents got divorced in my early childhood. So it kind of left things in shambles. So my mother, as a single mother with 3 kids, kind of had to put everything together and, worked really, really hard, always encouraged us to, to pursue education to the highest degree. So I ended up falling in love with the freeness of knowledge and how much you can just empower yourself by learning about the world around you. Ignorance to me it didn't feel right. I wanted to know everything. And so I ended up, studying really hard, doing well in school, and then finally ending up at Princeton. And when I got to Princeton, things were difficult. It was a major, major culture shock. I come from Boise, Idaho, which is 200,000 people, suburban lifestyle, majority of the individuals are white. And so coming here, it was definitely a culture shock to me because the education I had nothing to compare to necessarily. And when I got to Princeton, everything got much harder. The social life got much more demanding because as a first-generation low-income student, it was hard to fit in. I didn't feel like I belonged on this campus, nor that I was worthy, which I think is a feeling that first-generation and low-income students have all too often. But it wasn't until 6 months into my Princeton career that when I went with the chapel choir, which I was a part of, to Italy. There was a girl named Tara who I, for some reason, became very close with, and that was the first relationship on campus, friendship that I had developed that I really could invest myself in, and that the other person could invest in me. And so at that moment, I felt worthy. I finally felt like I had this feeling of belonging because I was part of a bigger community. And only because it was one other person, it still made me feel as though I belonged. So from that point on, I just really got inspired by the people around me. People started reaching out to me. I don't know if you know Farah Bui. She graduated last year, but she was a leader in the Princeton University Quest Scholars Network my freshman year, and she, reached out to me and said, "Dallas, I think you'd be an awesome leader. You have great enthusiasm. Would you want to be on the executive board for Princeton Quest Scholars Network?" And I said, "Absolutely. I'm down for the challenge. I want to, cultivate at least the smaller community at that time of first-generation low-income students not feeling as though they come onto this campus and they don't belong."
I remember you telling one story that maybe initiated or exacerbated that feeling was coming here and having to take out a loan initially, right, to get your bedding?
Yes. So my first interaction with the university was calling them and saying, "So where does the bedding come from?" Or like, where do I get all this stuff to put in my room? Mm-hmm. And they said, "Unfortunately, that's on you. You have to kind of come up with that." And as a low-income student, I had no money, and my parents had no money to offer me to buy that stuff. So I actually had to take out a loan even before I got on campus for around $300 to buy my bedding, to buy an alarm clock and shampoo and all of these random things that as once you're here and you start compiling it, it doesn't become worrisome. But it's at that very beginning that really it troubles you when you're coming on campus and all you have is a couple suitcases of clothing and maybe any other additional thing that you picked up. But that was hard for me as a student in this university, already having to go out of my way to get help for something that I couldn't control.
Right. Is there any? So you had that experience. Is there any other, like maybe one or two other things that really, again, made you feel unworthy or unwelcome that you can recall? You had that experience. Was there just certain activities that the college maybe do or the university does? Or even, I hate to call them prejudices, but maybe some insensitivities that people have, that I may have, that you experience?
Yeah, I guess something as small as, I was actually in a quad, and I loved all of my roommates. Mm-hmm. But the idea that, anything in the room is shared was very new to me. Mm-hmm. As a first-generation low-income student, anything I had, I always held very close to me. And I know it kind of made me a little selfish when I was younger. But coming into a quad environment where there's kind of this presumption that everything you have is shared was uncomfortable for me, because my roommates, their parents would bring lots of groceries and would have all this stuff in the room, and my roommates would encourage me to go after them. But when it came to me, anything that I bought was with the the very small amount of money I had, and so it was as if I couldn't provide for my room like they provided for me. Right. So it was an awkward exchange where, I would want to share my chips with them and whatever I had, but this idea, this insecurity that it was my only source of even though it wasn't, I had the dining plan, but it's just this thought process that it's the only thing you have, it's the only thing for you, that made me feel uncomfortable in that situation. But slowly those insecurities have diminished as I become into my Princeton career, and you start getting an understanding of your worth and your wealth and stuff like that. So
okay, you're progressing along your freshman year, and you've already touched upon 2 key relationships that you had. Were those the key? your development or transformation? What are the relationships, maybe mentoring relationships or anything else? Or maybe speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I would say the friendship that I formed was probably the strongest catalyst for who I am today.
Right.
I've always had a very strong sense of empathy for others and always wanted to be a strong advocate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I've always pursued activities in which I can be either useful in some fashion to another or to advocate for them. Because when you get your own sense of self-confidence, I feel as though you have an obligation, or it's my strong, motivation to use that and help empower others. So, as I was mentored in the Princeton University Quest Scholars Network, I became a mentor. As we're mentored in OA and CA, I became a CA leader. I was an interactor for the engineering program this year because I had a bad experience. Someone told me to take, I had a CEE professor try to tell me to take organic chemistry because it would be a challenge, let alone not knowing that every single class you take is going to be a challenge.
Right.
And so I kind of missed out on taking CBE 245 my first semester, which is kind of what they advise, but
right.
because I had a CE professor, I didn't get that, that guidance.
Right.
And so I wanted to become an interactor to give that guidance. Right. So I've kind of analyzed every place in my life where I wish I would have had a mentor
right.
or had a mentor, and kind of utilized that to help me decide what I want to spend my time on campus.
Okay, so now you have the council. At what stage are you all at? I know you're gathering resources, but are you able to work with incoming students or in a strategic way, or is it kind of basically trying to connect them with some other students in the council or involved in the council to kind of be mentors? What's the strategy, I guess?
Yeah. So we thought a lot about a mentoring program, and when we kept thinking about it, we thought it might be a little repetitive because of the different mentoring programs that go on in Princeton Quest Scholars Network, that go on in LEDA and Gates Millennium, and PUMP has a huge program. So we thought that we could definitely connect with those avenues to set students up with mentorship programs. Right. One of the main tasks we took upon ourselves was to encourage more networking and relationship building right at the beginning of freshman year, because that is such an important time for starting someone off in their conception of what belonging at Princeton means. So this, on September 16th actually, Dean Smith and VP Cherry are hosting a first generation dinner at Chancellor Green for all first generation students. So they've reached out to everyone who they know of, and hopefully that's going to be an amazing dinner. PHMC, the council members will be there, and hopefully just start off with saying, you made it, you belong here, we're excited for you, we're excited to become your friends, and to just see where your passions take you.
Right. So, well, that's exciting, because I know there's been a push to try to get more first-gen and low-income students into the Princetons and Harvards and out there, but I think it's another and probably a more difficult challenge to really support them as they need to be. So I ask you, so what's your kind of your hopes for the administration, someone like myself and others? What do you hope that we'll do differently or more of or less of?
Yeah, I would tend to agree with your statement. Actually, I agree with it very much. So I think the current outreach has been great for recruiting more first generation and low income students. I think the university partners with a lot of different great organizations to find that talent and to make it flourish. Right. What the harder part is when people are on campus supporting them. Right. Because it is going to be a whole different lifestyle that you're not aware of and don't know anything about. Right. So the biggest things we looked at were, one, community building. So how can you make sure that someone doesn't feel alone at this university? that there is at least one other person, if not 170 others, that are feeling exactly how they do. And how do we connect those individuals? And how do we connect those individuals without some sense of hope that with upperclassmen or faculty and administration who have gone through the same process as first-generation low-income students? So how can we encourage those dialogues to make sure that students know this is all part of it? It takes some adjustment. Hopefully it's not as long as mine was, the 6 to 9 months period.
Right.
We're hoping to decrease that as much as possible to where you take 1 or 2 uncomfortable months and then you feel at home. So that has been a really strong push. We also think that allowing the first generation low income students to have a voice on campus is going to be a miraculous thing. PHMC is currently working very tightly with administration to voice those opinions. It would be a great transition actually now to talk about their policies that they've presented for the panel, the committee that was hearing the socioeconomic diversity issues. So we've worked closely with them, and on the actual document, there's a lot of things that they have seen through our project. So they talk about online resources, which we're creating the website to compile social, academic, and financial resources, all of them. So we're really excited about being able to put those out there, because when it comes to low-income students, there are different resources. Like currently there's a fund, a medical fund, that pays for $300 worth of fees. And most students don't know about that because it's not advertised anywhere. You have to stumble upon it. And we want students to embrace the resources that are here for them. So we're really excited about that. Another thing that was listed on their outline, their strategic goals, was the community, the networking, and leveraging that to promote awareness, which we are so excited about doing. Currently, we've asked a bunch of students, anywhere from seniors, juniors, sophomores, to send in narratives of their experience with photos so that we can display them on our website. This is how we start building a community. We start sharing our experiences, because the sharing leads to understanding, the education really leads to understanding, and the understanding leads to acceptance. So when we put these stories that may be uncomfortable to share because we know someone out there is going to judge us for the story, but putting it out there is one of the greatest things you can do, embracing your story, because that's really how you're going to propel yourself. Until you're comfortable with who you are and who you've been, you're not going to be able to move forward with as much vigor as you could have.
So let me ask you, so we were looking at the recommendations, and I encourage you to go to Princeton University's homepage. They have the press release right on there with the recommendations, or a summary of the recommendations. And it sounds great. I think we're all full of hope, but where do you think we're going to get stuck? Or where's the struggle in this effort, in this endeavor?
Yeah, it's definitely one that's going to take some careful thought, and there's going to have to be some trial and error, because we don't know exactly what's going to support freshmen, what's going to make them, or all students in general, but what's going to make them less confident or more confident about who they are. But some of the hiccups, I think, they mentioned trying to focus on assisting low-income students, but from all of their points, I didn't see a clear distinguishing point that's really going to take burden off of students when it comes to finances. One recommendation that I've made is to have a fund at the beginning of the year for incoming freshmen, because that point is so critical, supporting freshmen by allowing them some sort of money for transitional fees, whether in my case it was bedding, whether it's a coat and boots or something like that. anything to make them feel more comfortable in this new environment they're put in. I think that would do a lot to support freshmen and all students moving forward financially, to start them off on a good foot.
Right.
And I guess I just see some other policies. Sometimes administrators like to use, big fluffy thoughts and like to work on pre-existing projects and try to improve them in some capacity.
Right.
But some of the things that they've listed, I'm having trouble visualizing how that incorporation is going to happen.
Right.
I'm optimistic because so far the administration has done so much to work with the Princeton Hidden Minority Council on trying to realize our goals and sharing our goals.
Right.
As students, that makes us feel tremendous that we have that support.
And honestly, I know my own experience is that you have these recommendations, we'll implement them, and you'll see where they're not working well, and you adapt.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, good people are working on it, so hopefully we'll see that.
Yeah.
So we're about the end of our time, but I just wanted to ask one more question. So there are students out there who are first gen and low income students who are going to be watching this, and hopefully they'll be encouraged by this and will reach out and email the council. But there's also students who want to make sure that they're being sensitive to roommates or people they know, or maybe they don't even know yet, but they want to make sure that they don't inadvertently say something insensitive. So what would you say to those students?
I would say definitely the best thing you can do is always go into any scenario with an open mind.
Right.
Understand that not everyone's experiences are the same, and you can't expect them to be the same. Closing your mind before even you talk to someone is going to be the most troubling factor for when it comes to just understanding and, like I said, acceptance. I would say just give everyone an opportunity to tell their story and see that person as utilizing those experiences in their life as a lens. It's a perspective. It's not a definition.
Right.
That's what I try to say. This experience doesn't define you, but it's absolutely shaped your lens.
Right.
And so understanding how someone views the world based on what they've been through is, I think, one of the most powerful things you can do.
Right.
And accepting, whatever that perception is, and finding commonalities between you and that person, or, we all have something in common. So I would say, even if they didn't go to the Bahamas like you did over spring break, find a new way to connect with them.
Right.
Be creative, be inventive, step outside of your comfort zone.
Thanks. All right, that's great. Well, once again, Dallas, I just can't thank you enough for coming out, spending some time here. And again, I really am thankful that I get to know you, that I know you, and and watch you grow as an individual this last 2 years, a little over 2 years now. I'm looking forward to the next two. Thank you. All right, thank you for joining us today. Take care.